guys, Tills20 here and welcome back to Bordertown. I hope you've all had a really wonderful Christmas break. I'm actually recording this episode, this commentary, before Christmas, so it's kind of a bit weird saying that because we are pre-Christmas right now, but I do hope you've had a really great one. I'm going to be spending mine with my family on the beach, which is generally what we do around Christmas time, so pretty excited for that. And because I am going away for a little while, I'll probably be away from the computer for, about a week or so. I'm doing a bit of pre-recording, so a lot of what you are seeing me doing right now is recorded quite a while ago, and I have to say I do quite a lot of progress in Bordertown. In fact, you're going to be watching probably mostly Bordertown episodes for the next few weeks because I have just been really vibing Bordertown lately and just getting so much work done. It's been a lot of fun. I've been putting in a lot of hours and yeah, it's just been awesome. In today's episode, we're going to be working around the downtown area. I'm going to be working on this sunken highway that's going to be running pretty much parallel to the downtown. So we're pretty much in the downtown area, but I just wanted to get a bit of infrastructure around here first before plopping down the main building. So this episode is pretty much me just figuring out how I'm going to be, how the actual highway is going to look, and pretty much just mapping out the general area. But then I do quite a lot of detail work around the main entrance and exit of the highway because I did want this whole area to be super detailed. There is like a real particular idea in my head of how I want this place to look. And I am taking quite a lot of inspiration from El Paso because there is pretty much the exact same highway that runs just parallel to the downtown. But I actually wanted it to look a lot grungier than the one in El Paso because the one in El Paso is actually quite a nice looking highway. I didn't really notice this from Google Earth, but then when going down to Street View, I could actually see that there's quite a lot of street art and it's a bit more modern than I expected. Whereas the one that I wanted to create for Las Palmas would probably reflect a bit more of a rundown highway that probably really needs some updating and no murals, pretty much barely any trees, and I really wanted this like very raw concrete look. And it took me quite a while to actually achieve that look. There is a lot of trial and error that I did off camera that you won't actually see. And I just decided not to keep that in because it's pretty boring, me just trialing a lot of things. So don't think that the first time you see me start placing down the detail work, that is the first time I've tried it. It really took quite a while to get it is exactly how I wanted it to look. But I think the end product's pretty good, and I'll let you be the judge of that. You should definitely stay until the end of the video where I do a pretty nice cinematic video. And a little bit of a cool fact as well about the end video, I'm going to have some music playing that I was going to use for the actual theme song for Bordertown, but at the very last minute I changed my mind and chose the one that is currently the theme song. So if you want to hear what the theme song could have been for Bordertown, stick around to the very end. I think it's still a pretty good fit for the for Bordertown. I don't know, just changed my mind for some reason. And fun fact, I had to get Strictosa to translate the song because it's got lyrics in it in Spanish, and I didn't really know what they were talking about, and I had to make sure that it was appropriate for YouTube. So hopefully it still is. We'll have to wait and see, but it's a good fit, and let me know what you think about it. And in terms of today's video, we are pretty much working just on the highway, but I do add a couple of buildings just as just a bit of a feel for this area, and I'll be expanding out those neighborhoods in episodes to come. I think over the next few episodes I'm going to be focusing mostly on the downtown. There's a whole bunch of things that I want to sort of achieve over the next few weeks in Bordertown, at least until we get back onto the Mexican side of the border, because we've been doing quite a bit of work on in Las Palmas on the US side, but I will get back into the Mexican side probably in like a month or so. But I'm also sitting on quite a bit of holidays, which is pretty good. I generally like to treat my holidays as a bit of time for me to get ahead of my episodes and do a bit of pre-recording. So I'm going to try and do a bit of that. And that also means that I can start potentially getting Springwood back up and Down Under happening as well. I've got quite a bit of time that I can start working on those things, which is pretty exciting. So you can expect quite a bit more episodes from me. I don't think twice a week would happen, but there's definitely you're definitely gonna see some old series start to resurface, which is something I've been kind of pushing for a while, but just not really achieving. And what you've seen me been working on in the time lapse is pretty much just me mapping out where the highway is going to sit. Some very messy connections, you're probably used to that. I generally do a lot of messy connections or messy not detail work, messy, I guess, plopping, zoning techniques in sort of the areas where I am getting a bit of a feel for, trying to figure out whether I want things in particular places. And then I'll sit on that idea for a bit and then revisit it when I do some more detail work around it. So if you saw some really ugly looking connections on the highway, they're not going to stay. That's just purely for, to see traffic coming through, and or it's there just so I can think about if that's a good place for the highway to run around. And a lot of the buildings that I do place down, so some of the taller buildings that you see me place down, me trying to figure out what I want the skyline to look like, because originally I wanted to create a really high skyline for Las Palmas, but I've since changed my mind and gone for a much smaller looking skyline. However, it is still somewhat prominent, and you'll start seeing it start taking shape over the next couple of episodes as I work around there. But just trying to figure out exactly how I'm going to create this concrete wall look. So the thing that I was having a really hard time with was I really wanted to look that there was like a gradual slope with the concrete slabs. However, when I was sort of terraforming this area, it was creating all sorts of weird bumps, and then there was no real network walls that I could use that had a incline that I really liked. I wanted there to be a gradual incline. A lot of the walls that I was trying to use, like the one you can probably see me messing with right now, it was very steep and it just wasn't working. So I ended up going back to the terraforming method, and it took a lot of work. You probably can't really tell, but there's a lot of making sure all those lines or the terraforming lines meet up perfectly, so that doesn't look like it's just a concreted ground. I guess it's more of a concrete slab. And then you'll see me start painting down using the decals, using the expansion joints by Beard Monkey, and basically trying to make it look like the concrete slabs. And at first, I just didn't think it was going to work, and I was just trying really hard to make it work, but eventually it starts taking shape, and you'll see a little bit later on, it really starts looking like concrete slabs. And like I said, it takes a lot of patience. It really wasn't a very easy thing to achieve, and there's a lot of behind the scenes trial and error, but I think the end product's great. And the cool thing about using tools like Move It is that you can just basically, once you've got the general idea of how you want something to look, you can just copy and paste segments of it over, and it's just it's a really easy way of just creating a lot of detail with not as much effort as having to redo everything. And this is a technique I use quite a lot with Move It. I basically copy and paste pretty much everything I build, and it just works so nicely. And if you're not using Move It, you bloody gotta get onto that. It's just the most powerful tool. And speaking of powerful tools, you'll also see me use this asset that I've used for probably 3 years. I think probably since people started releasing assets and mods onto the Steam Workshop, I've been subscribed to this one asset, and it's basically a set of concrete brushes, and they're just amazing. Like, they have been around since Surface Painter mod and all those other mods that allow you to paint the surface. And I remember using them when I first started Springwood, and was basically just plopping it everywhere because I just wanted to, change the look of a city. And I was like really amazed at how I could plop down these concrete slabs and basically cover up a lot of the grass in the downtown area. And then the Surface Painter mod came out. I was like, great, now I don't have to use this one anymore, but I'm still using it. And I think the reason why it's so powerful is because it creates just a beautiful edge, and you can't achieve that those square edges using Surface Painter. So if you're not subscribed to them, go and check them out. They're still so useful, and I use them in pretty much every single build. And I don't think I would be able to achieve what I'm doing with these walls without them, because they create that really nice edge. And I'm also using a couple of other things that I think just are basically game changers for these concrete walls. And you know, obviously the expansion joints really help. So using those expansion joint decals, obviously there are a lot of props in this to create them, but I think without the expansion joints, they just look really bad. And I'm also using these curb networks just to create a bit of a lip, just to basically show the difference between the ground and the concrete slabs of the walls. But like I said, there's a lot of props that go into these walls. I did want to create a lot of detail, and I probably won't go to as much detail in every single wall along this highway. There are going to be mostly concrete walls that are separating the rest of the neighborhoods and downtown from this highway, but I probably won't go to quite as much detail just because, you know, the city is going to get somewhat big and we're going to hit the prop limit pretty quickly if I'm going to use techniques like this. But I do think it's a worthwhile trick. And like I said, these walls that I've painted as well are very dirty. They've got basically cracks all over them. They've got grass sticking through them. It's definitely a very old highway, and it probably needs to be redone. Probably needs a new revamp. And I actually really like it this way. And to be honest, the whole of Las Palmas is going to have the same sort of feel to it. Like I said, we are taking inspiration from El Paso, but this is when I'm going to start going on my own tangent and start creating a different atmosphere, because I really wanted Las Palmas to have a different vibe to El Paso. I think I've mentioned in other episodes how I much prefer creating cities that are run down, got a bit of grit to them. I find those sort of cities far more interesting than cities that are you know, pristine clean and well maintained and full of trees. That sort of city doesn't really do it for me in terms of what I want to create. So I like to create cities that's a bit rough around the edges. So I guess that's where I'm going to be sort of going on my own tangent, because I think El Paso is quite a nice city, and every time I go down into Street View or Google Earth and I check out places that in my mind have a particular look to them, and then I float down and check it out, and it's far nicer. So for instance, the downtown of El Paso is beautiful, and I would like to take a little bit of inspiration from that, like to create a bit of a nice looking districts around the downtown. But I would also really like there to be a lot more old buildings, a couple more factories, and some more shady neighborhoods. That's generally what I want to create. And I'm also thinking about creating like an old town too, where it's maybe being gentrified, and some of the old factories are now starting to be turned into residential areas, and working on a couple of like neighborhoods that look like that. Because Las Palmas, what I'm creating, has quite a lot of industry, has a lot of transport in terms of the train network that I have, and especially with the connection to Mexico, I also wanted to create that. We're starting to get into the territory where I'm going to be going on my own tangent, which is pretty exciting. This little neighborhood that I'm working on now is a bit shady looking too, which is exactly what I wanted to achieve. I'm taking ideas from just neighborhoods that sits around the border in the US, and no city in particular, just like pretty much any neighborhoods that is sort of close to the downtown, but also just much older style of houses. I love these sort of houses. I think they're really interesting, and I'm going to create a lot more of these around the downtown. Once we've probably figured out exactly how the skyline will look, and once we've detailed all around the downtown and the old town, then we'll probably be just doing a mass expanse of this sort of neighborhoods that are just super old and probably very close to being turned into bigger apartment blocks to, you know, because they are sitting on like great blocks of land so close to the downtown. That's prime property right now. And a lot of these places are still occupied by, you know, either older people, or they're abandoned, or they're sort of just been waiting to like for whole blocks to basically be sold off to developers. I know that's the case in Sydney. There's still a lot of old houses that's really close to the city, and they're just occupied by, you know, people who are just holding out, who are basically waiting until the whole block is developed. And I'm also pretty keen to create a couple more abandoned blocks of just pretty much just empty blocks. I've noticed a lot of these around Texas and a lot around New Mexico. I actually would love for people to come and tell me why there are so much blocks that are just nothing around these sort of places. I notice this a lot more in the US than I do around Sydney or other places I've traveled to. Please let me know. Like, I'm quite curious to see what the change is, and quite a lot of the time I'll you know, look at Google Earth and I'll see these blocks that are just got no houses in it, and they look quite strange. And then when I go down to Street View, it obviously updates and it's a more recent picture or whatever, and a new development's going in. So I assume that a lot of these places are basically just under redevelopment, and that's why there's such a huge amount of empty lots. But it's really quite strange, and I've never really noticed it until flying around places like Texas and New Mexico. So yeah, let me know. I'm really curious. I find these places very interesting. I know a lot of people who watch Bordertown episodes are kind of from El Paso around and Texas and all that. So yeah, let me know. I am taking definitely inspiration from places like this, but you know, obviously not being from these areas, I am just doing whatever. I'm just building off my own imagination, and you know, definitely inspired by things, but I've only been to the US a couple of times, and I can't talk too much from experience. So your input is very helpful, because it just helps me out tremendously in terms of creating a bit of feel. And it's also kind of cool finding out people who live around there, because I actually find America really fascinating, and it's a country that I'm just probably continuously going back to, because it's just it's awesome. I love it. And in the last little bit of the time lapse, I am filling in this gap. I am putting in some more apartment complex than the other side of the highway, where it's just smaller houses. There are a couple of other smaller houses, and I am building a couple of vacant lots that are for sale. These lots are probably going to be redeveloped into these apartment blocks that you can see. But you know, I wanted there to be around this side of the highway to be like a mix of basically three things: modern apartment blocks, then the old school apartment blocks, and then the smaller houses. And almost wanted this to look like this was an area that was under redevelopment. It was sort of changing. Maybe the whole block eventually will look like those more modern apartment blocks that you can see closer to the off-ramp. And yeah, just basically developing it like that. And something that I forgot to mention early in the video, and I'm sure a whole bunch of people have already commented about this in the comments, but basically there are lines on the highway, the yellow and the white lines. I guess they indicate different sides of the highway, and mine are all screwed up. I think it's because I changed the direction a lot when I was placing down the road network, and I must have stuffed something up. These lines aren't in Australia, so I don't really know what they indicate, but I do know they don't just change yellow and white constantly on either side, so I know they're a bit messed up. They're going to be messed up for the next 3 or so episodes, because I've already pretty much recorded that stuff. So sorry about that. If you could let me know what those signs mean, that'd be awesome. I'd love to know. I might change them. I might not. I don't know. I'll see how many people are annoyed by them. But guys, that is pretty much it for this episode. This is probably the last episode for 2018, so I just want to say massive thanks for all the support. It's been so much fun this year, so thanks everyone who's been supporting the channel. It's been wonderful. But until next time, have a great week, and I'll catch you in the next episode. See you later.
Me llama a escapar de lo denso que ha sido vivir aquí en el último tiempo. Solo quiero caminar miles de kilómetros, huir de todo lo paranoico. Tengo ganas de llorar, pero mi alma está seca. Soy un ser inerte que quiere una siesta infinita. ahorita quiero estar en otra dimensión, estar lejos de toda globalización, desconectarme de celulares e internet, que nadie sepa de mí.